Most people think Claude Code is just ChatGPT that lives inside your terminal. And yeah, that is partially true, but it's so much more than that. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you what Claude Code is and why it is monumentally different to Claude in the browser, and why I think that Claude Code is the closest thing we come to a real personal assistant. This over here is exactly how most people that say they use AI operate by. It's how Claude in the browser works, or ChatGPT in the browser works. And the thing is that it has no to minimum amounts of memory about you. So every time you start a new thread, it won't remember who you are, what you do, what the project you're working on is. The generality of how this works is that you go out and ask it a question, it responds to that question, gives you an answer, and you copy that answer and do something with it. Which is fine for like simple tasks like what time is it today, but it is just not scalable if you're trying to run a real business. And everything that Claude or ChatGPT is lacking in the browser versions is what Claude Code is able to do. The two main reasons that Claude Code is so powerful is because, first of all, it lives on your PC, which means it can see inside of your workspace or a folder of yours and look at information that you have saved on your PC. Second of all, it runs on .md files or Markdown files, which is basically just a way of remembering stuff. Let's say, for example, that I spend 3 hours a day writing personalized cold emails. Instead of me having to write these emails and do research manually every single time, you could have Claude watch you do it a couple of times, understand how you do it, and it will write a skill.md file on exactly how you do it so it can recreate it and do it itself. And in the future, when the skill is done, you can just ask it to go out and write 15 personalized cold emails, and it will do it in your way, which is exactly what is making it so valuable. It will remember your voice, your business information, the clients that you currently have if you give it that information, the tools that you have access to, your Gmail, calendar, all your Google tools, whatever it might be. What I'm trying to say is that the reason Claude Code is so much more powerful than the Claude AI in the browser is because the browser version will forget 90% of what you talked about every single time you close down a thread and open up a new one, and that is not the case with Claude Code because it always operates inside the same workspace, which means it will keep context. Now you understand the actual concept of Claude Code and why it is that much better than Claude in the browser. Let me show you how you can actually start using Claude Code on your PC today. This right here is Antigravity, and this is what we're going to use Claude Code inside. It is an IDE, just like something like Cursor or VS Code, you've maybe heard of that. To keep it simple, this is just where we're going to manage everything inside. It can look a little bit techy when you first start using it, but trust me, it's not that difficult. To actually download Antigravity, just come over to Google, search for antigravity.google and go to /download, and you just download it down to your machine. If you're on Windows, download for Windows, Mac for Mac, Linux for Linux. When you have successfully downloaded Antigravity and you open it up, this is what you're going to see. The first thing that you want to do is actually open a folder inside of Antigravity. And to do that, just click Open Folder. I just go to my desktop right over here. Just to show you the premise of Antigravity, I'm just going to open a test folder right here. And you just click Select Folder. Perfect. Now let me just briefly go over what you're looking at right now. On the left side right here is like a compressed window of the Explorer. You can see it says Test right here. It's just a folder that I opened up. Everything that is inside of the test folder is going to show up on this side. So that would mean if I add a docs file and call it hello, it would show up over here. This middle window we can close down or open up depending on what we want, but this is where we can actually look at, for example, the Markdown files or the index files that we are building. We can manage everything that's inside them. The third part is the agent window, and Antigravity actually comes with one by default. It has access to some of the most powerful Google models, and also Claude actually, Sonnet and Opus, as you can see right here. However, it is very limited. If you're not on a paid plan, you will very fast run out of credits. So that is worth mentioning. However, we want to be using Claude and Claude Code. And for that, we will need a Claude subscription of some kind. It is going to be either the Pro or the Max subscription. If you are just starting out, I would definitely just recommend that you get the Pro subscription. It costs 15 euros a month and I believe like $18 a month. This will give you instant access to Claude Code, co-work, unlimited projects, and a lot more. Everything you're essentially going to need. You can consider upgrading to Max, which is the plan that I'm on right now. It gets you 5 times more usage. When you have purchased your Claude subscription, it is time to decide how we want to use Claude Code inside of Antigravity. And for that, there are 2 different ways. Another thing you will also need to quickly just download for running Claude Code inside of Antigravity is Node.js. And it's very simple. Just head over to nodejs.org and go to download and just select the operating system that you have. For me, it's Windows right now. I also have a Mac, so if I was on my Mac, I would just select Mac right here and just click Mac OS installer or Windows installer. Node.js is just necessary in order to run JavaScript inside of Claude Code and Antigravity. Number one, we could use the Claude extension that is available in here. Just come up to extensions right here, search for Claude Code, verify that it's the one by Anthropic, and you just download that essentially by clicking this one right up here, or right here somewhere, and it will open up right here. And you can just click the little Claude icon and it will open up a window where you just quickly have to authorize your subscription. Make sure that you actually select the subscription that you just made and authorize that and not going with the API key, because that can very quickly be very expensive. That is the first way we can use Claude Code inside of Antigravity. The second way is actually by running it through the terminal. And for that, you want to come up here and select this one right here that says toggle panel. You just click on that and it will open up the console. What I like to do is I like to close this window down right here, and I like to right click on this and have the panel position on the right side right here and adjust the view. Just to keep it simple, we have now opened a terminal window inside of Antigravity. And to use Claude inside of here, we're just simply going to write Claude and it's going to boot up Claude Code in the terminal. You can see it will basically just look like this, where you'll have the ability to select your subscription, or you can use an API usage billing or something third party. But I just want to use my subscription, so I'm just quickly going to hit enter right here. And this will open up the redirect, which is just going to ask me to authorize this connection, which I'm just going to do like this. Perfect. Place a sound cue. And if I head back into Antigravity now, you can see logged in, hit enter. Boom. And now we are inside of Claude Code in the terminal. As you can see, it's going to ask for permission. It's always going to do this, by the way, if you actually trust this folder. And you just basically want to say yes, since this is just locally on your PC. There's no risk here. But if this is the first time you're setting this up, you might have to go through a bit of a setup phase. It's super straightforward. Just use your arrow keys to go up and down and select the right choices, and you will have Claude Code be ready in no time. When I work inside of Antigravity, I usually just use the extension. But being completely honest, the terminal will allow you to do more stuff with Claude Code. It will have a lot more capabilities by default, which the extension unfortunately doesn't have. But what I've come to realize is that everything that I need to do, I can do with the extension. And I just think that overall it's a lot more manageable, especially if you're a beginner, to use the extension version. So yeah, I'm just going to do that by clicking right here, clicking the icon, closing down the terminal by clicking kill terminal, and closing this down right here. Perfect. Now we are ready to start working. So when you've actually authorized your subscription or your API key or whatever you decided to do, you will be able to just start asking it questions like, hello Claude, how are you doing today? Just ship that. And as you can see, it will start thinking and come up with a response exactly like in the web version. And that is actually it for setting up Claude Code inside of Antigravity. Now it's time to get into the actual real exciting stuff. To show you what Claude Code is actually able to do, I came into my personal assistant. Like I mentioned before, is the place where I do all of my work in my day-to-day in the business. And we could just ask it something very, very simple, like, for example, build me a landing page for a dog grooming business called Paws and Claws, modern design, hero section, 3 service cards, testimonials, and a booking button. We could just ship this. Then it's going to actually start designing the layout and building the actual code for the website. My Claude Code knows that every time we build something, it has to build it inside of the folder that is called My Projects. And as you can see right here, it has created a folder called Paws and Claws, landing, which is where it's going to store all the code inside and all the parts of the website, so to speak. So when it's done, it's going to be placed all inside of here, which is awesome. Okay, it now says it's done. I haven't checked this yet, but what we can do is that we can ask it to please open this in a local host, which is basically just going to allow me to take a look at it from a local hosted view inside of Google, for example. So let's see what it says. It looks like it wants to open the local host in 8765. It just provided me with a link, and I simply just have to click on it. It will open up on my website right over here in Google, sorry. And you can see if I refresh it, this is how the website looks. Extremely clean for a one take. This literally took me one prompt, and this is already something that some freelancers would charge $300, $500, maybe even $1,000 to make. And of course, this is not the full polished version. I would have to go back and forth and change things. I'm sure this will just take me to nowhere. Yeah, this just doesn't do anything. The buttons doesn't do anything, but you get the gist, right? this was just a complete one take. That is insane. And what we just need to do is change a few things before we ship it. Now, a question that many of you might sit with right now is, how did it just do this? Well, the thing is that the way it works is I have a bunch of different files inside of my personal assistant. And you might think, like, how does it manage it? Well, it's pretty simple. I have something called a Claude.md file. Like I mentioned previously, Claude runs on these Markdown files or MD files. And I have a bunch of them in here. All the skills are Markdown files. But this one right here is the Claude.md file, the overall MD file. And the best analogy I would use is, imagine a map that is going to point out to the different ends of the workspace. This is basically what this Claude.md file does. It lets the Opus model know where to find everything inside of this workspace. That way it can easily manage through stuff. And when I give it a task like build a website, it's going to read this MD file, find the skills that are available, and use them to actually build a website or landing page. That way it will always give me the best response by using the skills that it has available. To make this extremely simple for you to understand, because this is the most important thing, I've just come back into the test folder right here, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it Claude.md right here. And we're going to open up this inside of this one right here. Perfect. And basically, just to emphasize on what this is, we could simply just try telling it something like, you are Jessica, you are my personal assistant, and you're going to help me with tasks inside of my business. And after that, we can come over to Claude Code and we can ask it, who are you? We can send that. It's going to read the Claude.md file and determine who it is. It says, I'm Jessica, your personal assistant, here to help you with tasks inside of your business. What can I help you with today? And what I'm trying to do here is to make you understand that it's basically just a map that instructs Claude Code on who it is and where it can find stuff at scale. Of course, it gets a lot more complicated than this, but yeah, the concept is still the same. Reads the MD files and understands who it is and what it's supposed to do and can do. To give you another example of how powerful a Claude.md file can actually be, why not try creating one that is going to replicate this whole personal assistant structure so you can have it for completely free and start using it on your PC today. I spent months setting this up, and we could just copy this structure and you guys could start using it as well. And the way that I'm going to do that is that I'm going to open up a new thread right here. We can close down the old one, don't need it anymore. We could say something along the lines of, hey Claude, I want you to create another Claude.md file that is going to copy the skeleton of the workspace we're in right now, personal assistant, so that whenever someone takes the Claude.md file and puts it into an empty folder and asks Claude to read it, it will, clone the skeleton of this exact workspace. We're just going to ship this and see what it comes up with. Perfect, it now seems to be done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my Explorer right here, and I'm just going to take the file and I'm just going to drag it into the workspace right here. We can then open up the workspace and we can ask Claude to read the file and execute on it. So please read the MD file and execute on it. Perfect. Ship that and it should start building the layout of my personal assistant in this workspace. And just like that, it has completely cloned my personal assistant's workspace. Of course, nothing is actually in here, but you can start adding things when we get along with it, like new skills we create. They will all be placed inside of the skills folder right here. And that way we can easily manage everything and Claude can easily manage everything inside of your workspace. What we simply just want to do now is just delete the MD folder, delete it right there. And now we have a workspace with the personal assistant skeleton inside of it. Just like that. You should now understand the actual powers of Markdown files, the way that they work, why they are important, and that it's essentially the whole operating system of Claude Code. And also, of course, I'm just going to give you guys the skeleton right down below this video. You can grab the link and paste it into your own workspace. Up until this point, Claude can now do very simple tasks inside of our PC and help us manage our workspaces. But at this point, we haven't connected our actual tools yet. So when we run our business, we want Claude to be able to have access, like I mentioned, to something like Gmail or our calendar or our CRM platforms and extract data from these platforms so that it can use that and help us to do our tasks essentially. And to do this, we need something called an MCP server. This is the simplest way to describe an MCP server. If we have our Claude Code agent right over here, and we have our Gmail tool, for example, right over here. An MCP server is going to go into the middle and just connect our agent with our Gmail. To further help us understand this, I have just created this little diagram right here. Let's say I want my Claude to be able to send Gmails to my prospects. Then what's going to happen is that we're going to connect a Gmail MCP server. So whenever Claude is going to do this, it's going to use this MCP server and the tools that are in the MCP server. For example, let's say we want to create a draft, it's going to use the tool create draft, or if you wanted to send the email, it's going to use the tool send email, for example, and it's going to actually send the Gmail. So if we have the MCP server connected, we can ask Claude, hey, please send an email to XYZ person, and it's going to use the MCP server to actually send the Gmail. MCP servers are what makes this shit real. And don't get me wrong, they are great, but if you have a lot of different tools, it can be very much of work to set all these different MCP servers up. For example, you use all your Google tools, you need to connect those separately. You use GitHub, Hugging Face, Higgsfield, GoHighLevel, whatever you might use, you would need to get the official MCP servers or create MCP servers for all these separate tools one by one. And that can be a lot of work. And that is why there is a tool called Composio, which makes this process a whole lot easier. To break it down for you, Composio is basically just a middleman doing the hard work for you. So instead of you having to connect all these different MCP servers, you just connect your agent to Composio, and Composio, inside of Composio's dashboard, I'll show you in a minute, you connect to all of your tools so that it just takes a lot less time while being able to do the exact same thing. If you come over to composio.dev and log in, you will be taken to this page. And if you head over to connect apps, you can see all the different apps that you're able to connect. There are, I believe, over 300 different apps. So, well, a lot of your needs are going to be covered just by using Composio. When you then want to give your Claude Code access to it, you head down to where it says install, you go to where it says Claude Code, click install right here, and just go through this OAuth recommended. You could do that, or you could just give it your API key. Make sure you do that in a .env file for security reasons. Just to show you what I mean, essentially you just create a .env file right down here inside of your personal assistant or wherever you're creating it, and .mcp.json where you're going to store all your MCP servers inside. Basically just a setup like that to keep it secure. Just basically go through any of these two setups and your Claude Code will have access to Composio, which has access to all your tools. So that is an easier way to do it. Let's say I wanted to connect something like Google Docs, for example. It is extremely easy. What you'd simply just need to do is click on, it's going to say connect up here, click on that, select the right Google account. I'm just going to select this one right here. And it's maybe going to ask some questions depending on the tool. You just want to click continue or whatever it says, continue. And just like that, Composio is connected to Google Docs. Now my Claude Code can therefore have access to the Google Docs and write something inside of a Docs or create a Docs or whatever it might be that I needed to do. And now as you can see, if I come into Claude Code and just tell it to, hey man, please create a Docs document called hello guys, and just have it say in the document, hello guys. It's going to send it right there, and it's going to actually create this Docs for me inside of my Google account. And we're going to be able to see this document inside of Docs just a moment. As you can see, it has created a document saying hello guys in the text right here, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, you will most likely run into a scenario where a tool that you use is not inside of Composio. An example of that will, for example, be GoHighLevel. GoHighLevel does not have a current connection with Composio. So in that case, we would need to create a custom MCP server for GoHighLevel. And the way that we create MCP servers for these tools is going to vary a little bit because it really depends a lot on the tool that we're going to create it for. What you can do is you can search on Google, for example, you could say MCP servers for GoHighLevel, and you could read this document if you want to learn how to do it. But in this case, I know how to do it. So let me just show you what you need to do. You'd want to go into your dashboard, you'd head down to settings, you'd go to private integrations, and you can see I already have this right here, Claude Assistant. You'd simply just want to create a new assistant, give it a name, a description right there. And then you want to select the scopes that the MCP server is able to connect to. Basically what it means is just all the tools that the MCP server is able to pull from. Using the example as before from the Gmail, if I want my MCP server or Claude to be able to send mails to my prospects, I would have to enable the actual tool send email. You just want to hit the one that says select all, and you can just scroll down, blah, blah. It might give you some warnings about some of them. shouldn't be a problem, but if you are very anxious, you can click this away like this by just hitting the cross. And then you just simply want to click create. This is going to give you the API key, which is important that you copy that one. Because when you close this window down, you won't be able to see it anywhere. So click copy and you can close down the window. Then what I do is that now you have your API key, you want to go into Claude, tell it to create an MCP server for GoHighLevel inside of your MCP folder. You could alternatively give it this document that we looked at before, this one right here. It's essentially then going to clone this structure right here. And as you can see, it says bearer PIT token right here. The PIT token, API token, it's just what it's called, PIT token. You're just going to paste in right here and the location ID as well. And once you've done that, you can just ask Claude to help you. Once you've done that, you will officially have connected your Claude Code to your GoHighLevel account. There are also other ways to get these MCP servers. And the first one is simply just getting them from Anthropic's website. They already have given you access to all the biggest tools like GitHub and you name it, Miro boards, for example. And what you want to do is just head over to this site called code.claude.com, go to docs, and then go to the MCP section right here. As you can see, there are a bunch of different MCP servers right here. And what you'd simply just want to do, let's say I wanted to download Hugging Face right here. You just copy the command, head into Claude Code again. And for this one, you want to be in the console. So you would open up the console again, run Claude right here. You just want to paste the command right here and click enter. And Claude is going to download this for you. Another thing you could do is you could search on Google and go into communities for custom created MCP servers. Let's say you have a very niche software that you want to connect and you don't have an MCP server for it, and it's not available on Composio, for example, or in Claude. You could go on Google and search for MCP server for X and see if someone has already created one and published it on GitHub, for example. Then you could just go through the code. Of course, be careful. Some people might try to hide something inside of it. I'm not trying to make you very paranoid, but just be aware that that can happen. But you could go on GitHub and you could search for the MCP server that you want, and maybe someone has already created it for you. The third option is that you actually just have Claude help you build it. You could just ask Claude, hey, I want to build an MCP server for X. Can we do that, please? And you just ship that, and it's going to ask you a bunch of different questions, wanting you to get an API key, for example, for this platform, and a bunch of different stuff like that. Pretty self-explanatory, but every single tool that you decide to connect gives Claude more powers and more ability to actually help you inside of your business. I would recommend that you start up with the basics, the stuff that you use every single day, and I recommend that to keep it simple, that you just start with Composio. Let me see if I can find it. And I recommend that you simply just start with Composio, connecting the tools that you use the most. With that being said, let's move on to how we're actually going to build stuff with Claude. Before we get started with this, there are some things that I want to address. People often ask if you have to know how to code in order to use Claude Code. And my answer to that would be no. You just need to know how to ask good questions and actually be specific about what you want in the right way. With that being said though, if you're creating a software that you plan on launching to the public, you need to know the basics of coding, because there are some serious security threats that can be exploited if you don't know what you're doing. Claude Code is by any means not perfect, and it will make mistakes, and it's your task and your duty to make sure that you don't leak anything, any API keys, any sensitive data that you didn't expect or want to leak. And I'm not saying this to try and scare you away from building a software. I'm just saying that you need to be aware that it is not going to ace security and just keep you secure by default. That is your job to make sure that everything is secure. And therefore, you need to know a little bit about what you're doing. With that being said though, if you're unsure about anything security-wise, you can always just ask Claude Code what common exploits would be on softwares and how you can secure them properly. I just felt like I had to clarify this because while it on social media can seem like everything is very, very easy and takes 5 minutes, it doesn't always. And we need to take this security stuff extremely serious when we build something and publish it. Especially if you take payment from a client, you need to take it seriously. Okay, let's get back on track here. As you might remember, earlier we created a landing page for pause and clause, which was this one right here, which was this page that we made right here. I mentioned earlier that the skill is not necessarily to code, but the skill is to describe what it is that you want. And as we can see right here, I asked it to build a landing page for a dog grooming business called Pause and Clause, modern design, hero section, 3 service cards, testimonials, and a booking button. I said this because, well, this was what I wanted. And because I set this, if we take a look at the actual website, we have the header, as we can see right here, which is perfect. That's what I wanted. Then we have the 3 service cards, like I mentioned. I also wanted a testimonial section, which is also present right here. And then I mentioned that I wanted a booking button at the bottom of the page right here. And we can see it also did that. So what I'm trying to get at is the better you are at describing the stuff that you want, the better the outcome is also going to be. So the skill is not necessarily to code, the skill is to be extremely good at describing to Claude what it is that you wanted to create. I will say this is a very, very, very strong first attempt, one shot as it's called in this community, on a website. But I still, however, do notice a few things that could be improved. For example, it looks like the word right here is getting cropped. You can see the G is getting cropped. To fix that, what I do is I'd open up the snipping tool on Windows or take a screenshot if you're on Mac. And you just take a screenshot right here and you head into Claude and you can give it the screenshot. Let me just do this right here. You can give it the screenshot and you can say something like, hey man, this is looking great, by the way. There's a few things that I want to improve. Firstly, I noticed that the bottom part of the header is getting cropped a little bit. If you take a look at the G's, you can see it's like cropping off the letter. Please see if you can fix that without changing anything else. You just want to ship that. And you can also set it from ask before edits down to bypass permissions right here if you want that. That is going to make the experience more smooth. You can see it now is changing the padding at the bottom of the heading line right here, which could indicate that it seems to understand what exactly it is that I want to have changed. It is now done. If I head into the website and give it a refresh, let's see what it did. Perfect. As you can see, now the letters are no longer cropped. And you basically just want to go through your website and fix these minor inconveniences that might be. For example, let's say that it has used a lot of M dashes. If you don't know, the M dashes is basically like these AI dashes. As you can see right here, it's an M dash. This is a very big telltale sign that it was made by AI. And if someone has just a little bit of experience and they see an M dash, they know it's completely made with AI. So that is one of the things that you want to remove. And you just basically go back into Antigravity. You just say, awesome, that looks amazing. Now, can you please go through my whole page and clear it from M dashes? You just ship that as well. And given it a second, it's going to remove all these M dashes on the page. A few minutes later, it's done. It says all M dashes are now removed. And if we come into the website, you can see there's an M dash right here. If I give it a quick refresh, it should be done. And yes, it is. Okay, perfect. Let's say I'm actually happy with this right now, and I just want to publish this. It is a very simple process. What you want to do is you want to go into GitHub. First of all, log in if you aren't already and create an account if you haven't already. Head to where it says repositories right over here. Click on that. And you just want to click create new repository or just new repository right there. You just want to give it a name. You just call it pause and clause landing page, for example. You can have it be public or you can set it to private. I'm just going to set it as private for now. And you just click create repository. Then you want to copy the repository, head back into Antigravity and tell Claude something along the lines of, I'm very happy with how this website looks right now. Can you please push the index file and the contains onto this GitHub repository? And you just want to give it the repository right there. Click send. If you've hooked Claude up to your GitHub, it's going to be able to push this onto GitHub itself, which is amazing. Now it's done. And if I then head into the actual GitHub repository, you can see that the index.html file has actually been pushed onto the repository, which is perfect. Like I mentioned before, right now the website is just locally hosted, which means no one else but me will be able to see this website as it is right now. But let's say I wanted to actually have other people be able to go onto this website and check it out. It's also very, very simple to publish it. You just want to head over to Vercel.com and log in with your account. Then you want to go up here where it says add new. You want to click on projects and you want to find the GitHub repository that you just pushed. You can link GitHub and Vercel. And if you haven't already done that, it should be fairly simple to do. Just click import right here and you just simply want to click deploy right here. This is going to deploy the GitHub repository code onto Vercel. If we then click on the domain right here, it's going to open up the published version that everyone can access on the internet. And as we can see, it's exactly how it was in the local host, which is absolutely perfect. Now you know exactly what to do in order to come up with an idea, create an actual project, publish it and have version control on GitHub. And in the end, pushing it onto the live internet with Vercel. Remember that the main takeaway from this is that you don't have to be a coding expert. You just have to be skilled at instructing Claude Code on what it is that you want. The better you can describe it, the better the outcome is going to be. And another thing that is going to help you tremendously in creating these websites is something called skills, which is what we're going to get into now. If you've ever found yourself doing the same thing over and over again, Claude's skills is the solution to this problem. The skills will basically allow you to save all your instructions for a given task and then be able to repeat them with a simple command later on. Let me give you an example that can help you understand this. Let's say that I every day need a viral caption for my short form content, and I want Claude Code to help me with this. If I didn't have a skill for it, I would have to go in every single time and tell it to, first you need to transcribe my video. Then you need to come up with a viral caption that you need to do research on so that it actually is a viral caption. And then you need to create hashtags, and then I can take that and copy it into YouTube or wherever I would post the short form content. But with a skill, we just have to do that once, and Claude will remember everything that I did and everything that we did because we give it a MD file like the Claude.md file we talked about earlier with instructions on what exactly it needs to do. That way it's a lot more consistent, does exactly the same thing every single time. But with a skill MD file, we just need to do it once and Claude will understand how we did it, and it will be able to replicate that in the future. So instead of me having to tell it all these instructions, we'll just have to put these instructions inside of this skill.md file, and it will do exactly that. And then every time you want to run this skill in the future, you just put /transcribe or whatever the skill is called. It will then automatically find the video, transcribe it, and create the viral caption with the hashtags completely by itself. Maybe it's easier if I just show you how it actually works, right? Because it's already a skill that I have inside of my skill dictionary, we could say. Like I mentioned before, what you want to do is just put / and then you can type it out, transcribe, like this. This will run the skill, and the way the skill is set up right now is it's going to ask me questions about what I want. Here we go. So we can see the first question is wanting me to select the folder. I have different types of content. We have talking head, top of funnel, trial reels. Let's say I want run for the talking head videos. I click on that. Select the video. We can either select the newest or the oldest, or we can type other. Let's say we have some specific video we want to do it with. We can type the name right here. I'm just going for this to say oldest. Timestamps, I can say if I want the timestamps or not. This can help the AI model understand when stuff is set. If there's a large pause, for example, it can take that into reference. So I'm just usually going to say yes. And finally, we can ask it to run it for the viral caption, which is what I want. I also have it set up to run for YouTube title descriptions if I wanted a description for one of my long form videos, for example. And we could just say nothing if we just want the transcript. But I want the viral caption, so we're just going to run that. And just click submit answers. Now it's going to create the viral caption for my short form piece of content right here. And like I mentioned before, it works the exact same way as the Claude.md file. It's going to go in, read this Markdown file that has all the instructions, and it's just going to copy these instructions. That way it gets a consistent outcome every single time. And I'm completely hands-free, don't have to do anything. Just set transcript complete. Now it's going to run the viral caption, which is actually another skill in itself. It's just going to funnel it over to that skill. And as you can see, it's already generating the caption. We can see it has the text, it has the hashtags. What I can then do is I can simply copy this, head into Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or wherever, and just paste it in right there. Now you know how to run an already existing skill, but you might be sitting here saying and thinking, how do I create a new skill? Because it can maybe seem a little bit complicated, but I promise you it's really not. Ironically, if you want to create a skill inside of Claude Code, Anthropic has actually already created a skill creator skill that you can use, which is freely available. Everyone can go grab it. This will basically just instruct Claude Code with another Markdown file on how to create new skills. To find it, you just want to head over to Anthropic's official GitHub. I'm also going to drop the link down below this video so you can just find it down there. What you want to do is you want to head to the one that's called skills. Go into that right there, and you're going to find the one that is called skill creator. What you can then do is that you can grab this URL right up here. You can head back into Claude, paste it in, and you can tell Claude to please clone this repository inside of my workspace here. What that's going to do is that it's going to tell Claude that you want to copy this repository, this GitHub repository, and the contains over into your personal assistant workspace. That way you're going to give your assistant access to that exact skill. Once that is out of the way, let's try creating a skill. And for this example, I would just want a skill that can help me prep for meetings. We could call it meeting prep. Let me give it an instruction. We could say, use the skill creator to create a new skill called meeting prep When I give it a contact name, it should look up the info in my CRM, search my recent emails with them, summarize our last 3 interactions, list any open deals or proposals, give me 3 talking points for the call. We could just send this, and it should start reading the skill creator skill before it creates this new skill. Yep, as you can see, it is reading the skill creator skill right now. It's already done, I can see, and if I come over here to my skills section, I can see it has by itself, without me telling it, created the folder right here, the meeting prep folder, and if I open it up, you can see there is the skill.md file in here that is going to contain all the instructions. Let's see if it actually works. Hey Claude, I have a meeting tomorrow with one of our old clients. Please help me prep for that meeting. Let's send it and see if it can actually do what it's required to do. You can see the first thing that it did is that it read the meeting prep, which is exactly what we want. Looking at this right now, it is actually incredibly solid. It has gotten a lot of information. I'm actually quite surprised. But let's say that I wanted something more for this. Let's say that I wanted it to create a very customized follow-up SMS message that we're going to send out like 2 hours before the meeting. What I then do is that I'd simply say, this is looking very solid. I want you to add to the skill.md file that every time we run the skill, you're going to also create a highly customized SMS message based on the information that you know that we're going to send out to them 2 hours before the meeting. As you can see, it now added the step 3.5, which is draft the pre-meeting SMS. And it's just instructing itself on exactly what it needs to do. We just say yes right here. And there we go. It just showed me exactly what it would do for this exact scenario. Some of you may be wondering, well, how does Claude Code know when to trigger my skill? And that is a great question, because there are a bunch of different ways that can happen. First of all, like I mentioned before, you can point to it directly by putting slash and the skill name, whatever it might be, transcribe, meeting prep, for example. It will instantly point it to that, and it will know what it needs to do. The other thing is that these skills, inside of these skill.md files, there are some trigger words. And that could, for example, be meeting prep for the one that I just built. Meeting prep. Prep me for my call with X. Brief me on X. What do I know about X? Meeting with X tomorrow. If this is set in any thread, it is going to run the skill as well. Also, it's a very advanced AI model. It's not stupid. So if you talk about a long message with some context and it thinks, maybe this skill would be relevant for this context, it's going to go in and find the skill and then read the skill again. Now you know exactly how to use skills, how to create new skills, but there is one more thing that I would like to cover, and that is something that is called hooks. You can see right up here, if I open it up. I currently have 2 different hooks, a anti-deletion hook and a notification chime sound effect. A hook is basically an automatic behavior that runs without any triggers being required. So for example, this anti-deletion hook activates every single time Claude wants to delete something. And it's just a safety mechanism for whenever I run in bypass permissions and it decides to delete something. Let's say I didn't tell it to delete something and it goes to delete it anyways. If I didn't have this hook, it would just be wiped off the face of the earth and I would never be able to get it back. But with this hook, it's going to take that file and it's going to say, no, you can't delete it. And it's going to essentially send it inside of this trash folder right here and store it so I can restore it if I want to do that. Then there's the other one, the notification chime. It forces Claude Code to play a little sound effect every single time that it's done with something and needs my input. That way, if I'm, for example, sitting in another tab and it's done with something and it needs my input, it's going to play a little Windows sound effect, the doodloom, and it will tell me that I need to go back in there and check it out. These are really just like set and forget, and once I've created them, they just continue to run in the background in every single project. The main takeaway that I want you to get from this is that every single time you have something that is repetitive, a task that is repetitive, it is just a skill that is laying there waiting to be created. You just have to, like I just showed you, you just have to build it once and you can run it every single time you need to do the same task. To close out this video, I'm going to give you 8 powerful tips that took me a couple of months to learn, which you can have in 5 minutes. Tip number 1 is compacting windows. Inside of Claude Code, you have around 500,000 to 1 million tokens if you're using Opus. Just for reference, as you can see right here, this is from OpenAI's official website. 100 tokens is about 75 words, so a little bit less than a word. What it means is that whenever a token window is starting to be full, if you're reaching these 500,000 to 1 million tokens, you will have to compact your window. And if you don't do it before you hit the window, Claude will do it itself and just be compacting. The thing is that if you're compacting too many times inside of the same thread, you're going to experience something that is called context rot. To keep it simple, a worsening of performance. Claude Code will always perform the best in a completely new, fresh thread where there is no context to manage, basically. As much as you can, create new context windows. If you're doing two different tasks and they aren't related, don't do them in the same window. Tip number 2 is that you can tag different files inside of your workspace. Works very similarly as what we did before with the / commands, where we can reference a skill, for example. You just come into Antigravity and Claude Code. You just type add right there. And let's say I wanted to reference this one, AI Brain Competitor. You could just say AI Brain, comes up right here. And just like that, we will have pointed Claude towards this exact file. Tip number 3 is going to be plan mode. And this is the mode that you want to operate in whenever you have to create any large project. The way that it works is that you select the mode inside of Claude Code right here. As you can see, it is in bypass permissions right now. You just want to set it to plan mode. And then what will happen is that it will be set to plan mode. And that allows Claude Code to only read. It's then going to research your code base. It's going to create a full draft plan, which is then going to present to you in a very manageable way. You're then going to read this or just accept it directly. And then Claude Code is going to go into execution mode. If you want to avoid mistakes inside of Claude Code, this is the single best thing you can do whenever you're creating a project. This will maybe take your mistakes in a project from something like 30% down to maybe 10%. So that's a huge increase. Tip number 4 is switching between the models inside of Antigravity and Claude Code. Anthropic has 3 different models. They have Haiku, they have Sonnet, and they have Opus. You might have heard of these. Haiku is the fastest and also the cheapest. It's good for quick questions, quick simple questions, simple lookups, and so on. Number 2 is Sonnet, and Sonnet is the one that they recommend you use most of the time for day-to-day tasks, email drafts, stuff like that. It's a little bit more expensive, a little bit slower, but also a little bit more complex. Then finally there is Opus as of now. Opus is the most complex, but also the most expensive model there is right now. So they recommend that you don't use this for simple tasks. However, if you're on the max plan and you're not really hard coding every single day, all day, you can definitely just use Opus for all tasks. That is what I'm doing right now. But it depends on your plan, it depends on what you're doing. That's just a basic breakdown of the models. Rumor has it that there's a new model coming called Mythos, which is going to blow through the roof of Opus. But more on that later when it drops. Tip number 5 is handoffs. And this is something that I discovered like a month ago, and it has become a game changer for me. The best way that I can describe it is that let's imagine you've been working with Opus inside of a window and your context roof is getting pretty close to that max amount. Instead of just accepting the compacting and getting context rot eventually, you can write a handoff file. I've created a skill that allows me to just put /handoff and it will compact the session and create a handoff file, which I can then go into a new window, say, hey, please read this handoff file before we get started with this project. It will read up on all the context and have the knowledge to continue working in a new thread. That is another way to avoid this context rot while still keeping context. It's amazing, honestly. If you want access to this handoff skill, you can find it inside of the templates and resources right here. Tip number 6 is to use subagents. Let me quickly just explain the difference in a make-up scenario. Let's say I have 5 videos that are 10 minutes long that I need to transcribe. If I don't use subagents, one agent is going to start transcribing these videos as they should, and it's going to do it one at a time, which means it is going to take 5 times as long. But on the other hand, if we have Claude just spin up 5 identical subagents that are all going to transcribe 1 video each, it's just going to take 5 times less time than the sequential agent right over here. Tip number 7 is going to be 2 repositories from GitHub that I really recommend that you download in order to make your work a lot smarter and a lot more efficient. Number 1 is called Superpowers and number 2 is called GSD. You can see there is the GitHub links right here. I'm going to leave a link down below the video so you can find them as well. What you're going to do is you're going to come into Antigravity again, into your workspace. You're going to paste the repositories and you're going to ask Claude to clone them onto your workspace. Hey Claude, can you please clone these 2 repositories inside of my workspace? And if you think it would be necessary, we can also download these as global plugins. What that means is that it's just going to be available in every single session that you run. If I were to describe these 2 powerful sources, they're just advanced skills to supercharge Claude Code. If you take one thing from this entire course, is that 80% of the value lies in the Markdown files you write and have Claude write with you, and the MCP servers that you connect to your Claude Code. These Markdown files are going to let Claude Code understand your business, and the MCP servers that you connect are going to allow Claude Code to take action in and on your business. And everything else that I just showed you, the skills, the memory information, sub-agents, plan mode, and all the other tips I shared with you are just building on top of the powerful foundation of Markdown files and MCP connections. I really hope you found this guide helpful. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them down below in the comments. And if you aren't already, we have a school community that you can check out. It's completely free. We have around 8,000 members who are all trying to learn and leverage AI, for those of you guys who want to learn more about this stuff. But with that being said, have a blessed rest of your day. I'm out.